Welcome all, I'm Heather Penzak. I'm the Director of Innovation and Implementation here with Education Systems Center. I'm one of the organizers for the conference here, and I'm just really excited for you all to hear from 2 Illinois communities about their high school youth apprenticeship programs and some promising practices and lessons learned. And what's really cool is you're going to see a community who's at the start of their youth apprenticeship journey, and then you're going to see a community who has navigated a lot of those pieces, figured out, quote unquote. I know Darryl and Bob might say we're not quite all figured out there yet, but they are very much well along their journey. So excited again to hear you, or for you to hear both of those perspectives of building and implementing a youth apprenticeship program. So would love to know too who's here today. So please take a moment, write your name, title, organization in the chat. We're recording the session. The presentation will be shared out with the recording. If you've been enjoying the conference, attending other sessions, they're uploaded pretty quickly by the end of the day. So all those materials will be there for you. But again, would love to know who's here, even as our presenters are thinking about what they're sharing and the different roles that are present, how they might speak explicitly to that. But please, again, just go ahead and mute your computers or your phones if you're not sharing. We will, though, very much be taking questions and want to create a conversation and a dialogue with you all. So at the end of each presentation of the communities, we'll have time for you to unmute yourself and ask any questions. But please use that chat all throughout to provide comments, questions. Again, also thinking that this is a collaborative learning space. If you have, if somebody's sharing something and you're like, oh, I have a great resource for that, or if I have a great best practice, or you might have a question, right? Please feel free to put all that in the chat as we go throughout the presentations today. Welcome, welcome. So good to see you all in here. Thank you so much for putting that, who you are and what you do in here. If there's any questions top of mind for you on high school youth apprenticeships, please start to put those in there too. But just want to set some very quick context for you all before I turn it over here to our first team. And so, within Illinois, we have a defined work-based learning continuum. And so thinking about where that youth apprenticeship falls, it very much is towards the end of that continuum. So as you're going to hear from our presenters today, it's a robust experience for young people, right? When you think about that increasing intensity of employer engagement, this is like full employer engagement, right? Like these young people are very much working at that site, gaining those essential and technical skills. The goal is that they've completed other components of work-based learning before that, right? So by the time they're getting to their youth apprenticeship, they're feeling pretty confident about this is a career area they're interested in, that they want to explore more and then pursue some post-secondary education in. And so from the Illinois Career Pathways Dictionary, I'm not going to dive into this in too much detail. You're going to hear about these different components as our presenters share, but do want to let you all know that within the state, through the Illinois Career Pathways Dictionary, we do have a definition for a youth apprenticeship. We have definitions for other components along the work-based learning continuum as well. And those are really there to make sure that there's a minimum quality set for what the experience is for students and for what schools and organizations and employers are building and designing for students, right? So as long as your experiences are addressing these components, they're meeting those definitions of the state Career Pathways Dictionary. But putting this out there for you as reference, again, this presentation will be shared and our presenters will talk to each of these components. But with that, I will be done. Unless there's any immediate questions. And I'm going to move and turn it over here to our group from Chicago, from Careerland Chicago.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Gomez. I'm the director of Careerland Chicago, and we're very excited to join you this morning. I am accompanied by a couple of folks on this call as well. We are what we call ourselves the Careerland Chicago Action Work Group, and these are the folks that have been meeting for the past year as we took this program from incubation to implementation. So I'm going to give folks an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the presentation. And so Erica, I just see you on here first, so if you don't mind just starting us off.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erica Eamon. I'm the Senior Manager of Workforce and Corporate Partnerships with 1 Million Degrees, which is the organization that provides wraparound services and curriculum to our youth apprentices. And I think I saw Hector somewhere on here.
Good morning, everybody. Hector Gonzalez, the manager for CTE Pathways and supporting Career Launch Chicago. And I'll pass it over to Kina.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Keena Franklin, Program Manager for Youth Apprenticeships at Chicago Public Schools.
Okay, great. Is Serena on here as well? No. Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and get started. The next slide, please, Heather. Thank you. So I do kind of want to share with you all a little bit around sort of what's been the ecosystem around this work that has really allowed us to gain momentum and get this going. And the big piece in setting the stage for this work has been an even more ambitious partnership which is the Chicago Roadmap. And as you see on here, the Chicago Roadmap is an unprecedented partnership between CPS and CCC. This work has around 23 working groups all around the 5 domains that you see on here. And Careerland Chicago is just one tiny piece of this huge project. And we fall under domain 4, which is career exploration, experiences, and readiness. And being part of this, larger strategy has really allowed us to also have a lot of support from leadership, both at CPS and CCC, which plays a huge role in allowing us to get as far as we have gotten in the 1 year that we have been around. If you don't mind moving to the next one. Thank you. So I started in this role about a year and a couple months ago, and one of the first things that we wanted to get going really is building our table, right? So who were going to be the folks around this work consistently that we're going to be able to get it to the place that we are now, where we have launched our inaugural cohort at the top of this month. And so we had an asset-based approach to building this action team. And it was really about getting the folks who are already doing this work. And so you see on here that we have Chicago Public Schools, and we work specifically with their early college and career education staff. And this team was already building out their work-based learning toolkit. They were already finalizing their work-based learning continuum, where a youth apprenticeship was just the natural next step, right? So it was really, our goal was, how do we just align to the strategies that you all already have? So it was much less about reinventing and much more about alignment. So in this work specifically, that's where we see the youth apprenticeship manager role be developed in the last year, which Kina is our youth apprenticeship manager. And so she is the teacher of record for the YA course, which Hector will get into a little bit more of our model in the next slide. We also partnered with 1 Million Degrees, who is a nonprofit here in the city of Chicago that has a nationally recognized model for supporting students successfully through their city colleges experience. And so now they're working with us, starting with high school students, and they have a role specifically, the career advancement coordinator, that is specifically assigned to CLC. And this career advancement coordinator, as Erica said, does the biweekly one-on-ones with the apprentices, supports, hosts a couple of professional development sessions, and supports Kina in her professional development sessions as well. And then also does employer manager facing trainings for our partners throughout the course of the youth apprenticeship. And then lastly, I wanted to include on here Education Systems Center, right, which we already know they have a wealth of knowledge on work-based learning throughout the state. They have, access to models and just different ways of approaching this work. And so for us, it was important to have them on our action team as well as a sounding board, and just as an additional thought partner to get this work lifted. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Hector, who will talk to you all a little bit more about our model.
All right, so one thing about Careerland Chicago, it is a partnership between the City Colleges of Chicago, Chicago Public Schools, and the City Colleges of Chicago. And what we're here to do is provide our students with either a 1-year or 2-year apprenticeship program that begins their senior year of high school. What makes it unique is that they also, as they sign up for the apprenticeship program, is actually an honors course. So part of it being an honors course, one, we know that it'll improve their GPA, but part of it is that they also get to leave school early. So our students come in, they start their day at the school, and they leave 2 hours early to travel to the apprenticeship site. And I actually listed the sites that we're working with right now, because we have apprenticeship programs within IT, construction and design, advanced manufacturing, auto body collision, and pharmacy technology. And so these are our partners that we work with. And out of all of the Chicago Public Schools, we represent all sides of the city. So from the north, south, east, and west. And we have 7 schools that are currently participating in our program. And all of our students are presenting, all of our students that are in the program are also getting wraparound supports from 1 Million Degrees, where they have like their one-on-one check-ins. They work on professional development sessions with them. And the pathways that we chose are also pathways that are in high demand sectors, right? And so part of it is that we want to make sure that our students are, going into a sector where there is upward mobility, and then when they transfer into the city colleges, we have career pathways for them as well. So students can either get anywhere from a basic certificate, an advanced certificate in manufacturing. They can get their associates in IT. And if students want to continue into advanced manufacturing, we also offer that associates and even the pathway to a 4-year university if that's something that they decide to pursue. So part of our program is that we have these pathways for them. And so that way we know that once, they graduate high school, they continue their apprenticeship for that 2nd year, continue the pathways. And this is where, 1 Million Degrees is very, beneficial because they have that track record to make sure that our students succeed and enrolling into the city colleges and supporting them as well. And then next slide, and then I'll let Kina talk about the rest of it.
Good morning, everyone. So as we know, in order to have an apprenticeship program, most likely you're going to have a pre-apprenticeship program. And usually we host that over the summer with a program called Aim to Launch. So it started out as our apprenticeship incubator, where we had to pivot in order to have a summer program prior to us actually starting semester 2. So it started out that our apprentice was working in these model pathways such as construction, and we would have them to work for 6 weeks with some of our partners for 120 hours to get that hands-on experience as they were preparing for their apprenticeship for their second semester of their senior year of high school. Year 2 of AIM will now focus on preparing the students specifically for youth apprenticeship. So now, last year, whereas we had those students just a traditional internship, now we're trying to be more generalized and more focused that this is specifically where the students will get to visit each site, because sometimes we know that we have 2 IT programs. Maybe a student did not know the difference between the 2 hospitals. Hospitals location makes a difference, program makes a difference, who they will work with, all the way down to what part or what function within IT they're going to work with. So now with AIM for this summer, we're more deliberate and we're going to be very specific about getting these students their hands-on at each location so that they are aware of what they're looking at for their beginning of their apprenticeships. Now, as a teacher of record, I also work with Hector in recruiting the students for the apprenticeship. So we do all of the communication to the students from recruitment, getting them involved, helping them with OMD with their check-ins, helping OMD also assist me with helping them with their resumes, how to interview, things of this sort, so that we know when we send them to these employers, they are prepared and they are ready for the next step. So as the incubator for CLC, we do not get to interview the students. Those are done strictly by the companies, and the companies are the ones to hire them. So we just manage the communication. When will they have their interview? One of us will be on the call for security purposes. How did the interview go? What is the next step? All the way down to the next part of onboarding. We take them from the beginning of onboarding all the way through the program. So once a company takes the student on and agrees to host them as for the apprenticeship site, I'm also the one that checks in to make sure that all of the milestones that are set in the beginning are reached throughout the program. Now, with this being our first year and we're preparing for our second year, this next part, adjusting the timeline, could not have been more relevant. Yes, we've had to go from A to B to C, back to A, then to F, just to get to where we are now. As you know, anything that's new takes some realignment more than once, sometimes 2 and 3 times, but it has come to the point where we now have a vision on how this should look. When we reach out to the partners, we discuss with them, well, these are the earliest a student can get there, where a student would be coming from this location. So maybe this partner says, well, we can only take students for a second shift. Okay, is this something that we can now go back to a school and say, hey, these students will have to work 4 to 7. Is that okay with this student? Is that okay with your program? So just being able to readjust from times from the school side, as well as times from the partner. Sometimes a student says, yes, I can make it here by this time, but if they're on public transportation, now we may need to also factor that in and readjust our timelines again. But I think throughout this whole process and our working group, we have done such a great job with getting them from AIM last summer to being intentional for AIM this summer to having a great apprenticeship. So I'll pass it to the next slide.
Yeah, thank you, Kina. And I think with all of the lessons that we are learning currently, we are concurrently developing our best practices. So that's what I want to speak a little bit about. So the first one really being this action working group that has come together, where we're meeting weekly to discuss program design, strategy, implementation, and apprentice updates, making sure that the communication, not only for students, is open, but for each other as we're all navigating different ways of supporting students in this program. We also developed an advisory council, which is comprised of local business and education leaders to provide insight and support of our program development and design. We also find it that it's really important to have a shared space, such as SharePoint, to share materials so that all members of our action working group can be able to view and modify and share the materials to others as necessary. We've also developed and create a lot of visuals and templates for employers and students to, one, integrate alternative ways of processing information, but also to be able to refer back to when trying to understand the program complexities and processes that exist. We also take inventory of what resources already exist and what are available to our apprentices, as well as participate in learning communities so that we're learning best practices from others who are in this space and are doing this work well. We also provide the curriculum on soft skills and workforce readiness for both apprentices and managers. And then the last best practice we have noted so far is that at the center of this work, we are working with students and we have learned to just meet them where they're at in school, work, and in life, which is extremely important. And we acknowledge that understanding that all 3 of these pillars will influence their success in the program. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Stephanie.
Thanks, Erica. Thanks, everyone. So we just want to thank you all for your time and your attention this morning. I know it was pretty fast and could be somewhat high level. So if anyone's interested in learning more about how we did it, some more of those challenges and how we found workarounds and solutions, I'm happy to make myself available. I'll add my email on the chat and just open to connect with folks if you're interested. Thank you.
You all, and do welcome if there are some questions. Again, if you want to unmute yourself or put those in the chat. I don't see any chat questions right now, but we do have a moment before we turn to our next presenters to do that. Happy to do a little awkward silence wait time while people might think of those.
Heather, I don't think I have to unmute myself. What does the recruitment of the employers look like, and who does a lot of that work?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, Darryl. Thank you. I just kind of want to say, like, we're in a very interesting our work is very interesting just because we're coming at it from different angles, right? So like I have like Tina's at CPS, sits at CPS, I sit at CCC, Erica sits OMD, right? So in terms of this work, so far, I have really taken on the lead of finding those employers, but I get a lot of support from Kina and others who have connections. This past year, it has been a lot of like personal networking and kind of like leveraging the relationships I've had from previous roles and from there kind of snowballing to other folks. Keeping in mind like our focus areas. So we knew we wanted to be in advanced manufacturing. We knew we wanted it to be in IT and in health, but it's been a little sort of like sporadic in that way. But for this upcoming year, I know we want to be much more strategic around it. So we are starting to look at both CPS and CCC's Salesforce information around employers and trying to like find the overlap and identify those employers who we think are ready for a youth apprenticeship on both ends.
Do you have more students for placements, or do you have more placements for students?
I would definitely say there are more students than placements. So just to give you a little bit of context, we have 23 apprentices this year. But we received 175 student interest forms. And that was from like maybe 2-month recruitment outreach, you know, and that because we had to adjust our timeline. So the student interest is definitely there. We just need to build up the employer availability and capacity to be able to support that.
I can't wrap my head around that. That's a lot. I mean, I know how hard it is in our little small area that you guys are dealing with Chicago, so good for you.
Hey all, thanks for the great presentation. Do you find that finding employers, I know it's already a challenge as it is, but finding employers that are within a good travel distance is also kind of a key component? And I mean, if you have somebody on the north side and they're traveling, you know, to south suburbs, like, is that something that you're considering? And like, what's like the maximum kind of transport time you're thinking about?
Yeah, I can start us off, and Kina, if you want to jump in at some point, you know, feel free to do that. You know, Mitch, when we were starting this off, we really wanted our max was an hour on public transit. And I want to say we did okay for most folks, but we have a student right now who is traveling an hour and a half all the way to like West Rogers Park, which is like super north side from. He's at Prosser, right? So that's like the northwest side of Chicago. That has been hard. I think the hard part too, because that's our only advanced manufacturing partner. And when we look at advanced manufacturing, a lot of our folks, like a lot of companies are in the suburbs or kind of even further out. So we are trying to be more strategic around like how to engage some of those manufacturing companies that maybe are on the south side that we need to, you know, that would be better fits for our students. But yeah, it's the hour max. That was like our benchmark. I want to say we met it for all of them except the one student.
No, that's great. I'll connect with you after, because I think that there's some people it would be good to talk to if you haven't already that would try to help figure this out for you too.
Yeah,
I'd love to do that.
awesome.
I see there have been some questions addressed in the chat too about whether students are being paid, which yes, they are, right? They're being paid about $15 an hour. In terms of this program is for those seniors who are in Chicago public schools, right? And Kina put in there where it addresses their graduation requirements, how it counts as an elective for them. I see a question in the chat too about, you mentioned youth apprenticeship is one of the course and how the student might balance their time with their academic work and apprenticeship. I think maybe some more clarity on the course might be helpful, like when they're attending a course versus their apprenticeship.
Do you want to take that one, Kina?
I actually was typing it in the chat, but here, yes. So as far as the YA course, I normally grade them based on them attending their PDs that's already stated between myself, 1 million degrees. So as long as they attend their PDs, as well as they're reaching those milestones, that's how they're graded. And then far as when it comes to balancing their school life and work life, they are required to leave school 2 hours early. That gives them the time to make it to school, make it to work within that time and still have those 2 to 4 hours of work time. So yes, it is a course, but the course is more geared and graded towards their hands-on experience with the employers, as opposed to a traditional, let me give you a test, here's your work assignments. Their work assignments as of right now is to make it to work on time, reach their milestones, and attend their professional developments that are already listed at the beginning of the program.
I think we have time for one more question before we go to our presenter about how you might handle the apprenticeship extending beyond high school graduation.
Sorry, Heather, was that the question? Sorry, I was like writing something at the same time.
No, you're good. Yeah, it looks like, so it says, how do you handle the apprenticeship extending past the high school graduation?
Yeah, thank you. I can't see who asked that question, but thank you for asking that. And we are actually going to be able to answer that for you in 6 months, right? So we have not moved past that just yet. But one of the things that we did have a chance a couple of weeks ago to have like a postmortem on year one so far, and talk about like, how do we start to present to the student the idea that like this goes beyond high school, and just do a better job of clearly sharing that message with the student. We are going to start working on almost like individual packages for our students where it's, for example, we always talk about little Johnny. So like little Johnny, who's one of our apprentices right now, will receive a package at the end of this month that says, hey, little Johnny, if you continue your youth apprenticeship with S&C Electric Company, it connects to this certificate at city colleges. And actually this track is considered future ready, which means it would be of no cost for you. And then we see that you did some early college, so you might actually get some articulation credits, right? So we just want to go like through each of our apprentices and do an inventory of like, what have they done in the past that we can use to incentivize them to move to city colleges, because that's our goal. So our goal really is that after CPS, they move into city colleges. But we haven't crossed that bridge just yet. So maybe next year we'll do a presentation on how we successfully cross the bridge.
Yes, I love that you already volunteered yourself over there. I'm gonna remember as one of these conference organizers here, Stephanie. Well, thank you all again so much for sharing, again, the beginning of your journey here and how far you've come even within that 1 year, right? I know as a team, we always reflect like, we've done a lot actually in this year, right? And really overcome some pieces and found some best practices. So appreciate you all for sharing that. And if you all continue to have questions, the CLC team has been fabulous in here answering your questions. So if you think of something else, please feel free to put in the chat, or Stephanie put their contact information in there too. And if you're a partner on the line and you would like to host a senior Chicago Public Schools student, right? Reach out. But I'm going to turn it then over to, and I know Bob's going to share their screen here, to Darryl and Bob to take you through further along a journey of youth apprenticeships. So take it away.
Yep, as Bob pulls up the screen, I'll just introduce. We are in Northwest Illinois. Fulton is located on the banks of the Mississippi River, right next to Iowa. Clinton, Iowa is across the bridge. I can see the bridge and the river from where I'm sitting right now. So we're a heavy manufacturing based region, and we've been working since I've been a partner with 60 by 25 with both manufacturers and really a lot of the manufacturers. That's where our best opportunities for the work-based apprenticeship and work-based learning activities are. So as Hector talked about the continuum, we've had to work really hard at getting high school apprenticeships off the ground. And as you'll see, as we talk about this a little more, we continue to try to get Illinois partners to do this, to the full registered Department of Labor apprenticeship program, but have ran into roadblocks, but have been able to work with the state of Iowa and Clinton Community College, a different CCC. And because the employers are in Illinois who partner with the Iowa Community College, we felt, why not have our high school students access these opportunities and enroll in these courses? And so as we talk about our work-based learning continuum, the registered apprenticeship program is with an Iowa community college, but an Illinois employer and an Illinois student. So that's sort of an introduction to some of our context as we move forward.
All right, I'll introduce myself just briefly. Bob Gosch, I've been a principal at Fulton High School for 4 years. And when I started this position, Dr. Hogue and I had some pretty good alignment on where we wanted to see students go. So I'll go ahead and move us through the presentation. Dr. Hogue, you want to just kind of help monitor the chat and jump in when we need to. So we started out with this apprenticeship and looking at establishing this. There was some pathways that we needed to do and college and career readiness indicators that the state was going to measure us on. The career development experience, this industry credential, the dual credit career pathway courses, and these that some of you may be familiar with. So we wanted to look at programs that could help us accomplish this, but also it was in the best interest of a lot of our students. So we first started, we had a program, it's called Community Involvement. It was here before I even arrived to the district, but it's the senior year for a student. We're on a block schedule, so our class periods are 85 minutes every other day, meaning you take 4 classes on Monday, and then Tuesday you're taking 4 separate classes as well. So the length of the time that a student can go out and job shadow is 85 minutes. Current and former placements, medical facilities, teachers within our district, various other occupations have agreed to take a student on. Students write reflections and about what they learn or what they did during the week. So this is just part of that career exploration and experiences, but we wanted to make these a little bit sooner. Dr. Hogue did write his dissertation on the community involvement program, and I'll let him speak about that.
Yeah, I'd love to share this slide when I get a chance. For everybody out there, please know that the time and energy put into developing work-based opportunities pays off for students. I did a 3-year study of all our students. I compared those who were in the program, who were in work study, and those who were not. So typically 2/3 of our roughly 80 students per grade level of seniors enroll. So 2/3 to 1/3 was my comparison. Took 3 years of data. Overall GPAs were significantly higher, statistically higher as well. Absences were, students missed fewer days when they were in the work study programs, and they were twice as likely to enroll in a 2 or 4 year college based on their involvement in a work study program. And so this was a 2-part study, and the second part, I interviewed both students, parents, and employers as the other portion of the study, and found that obviously students love going to these programs, and several students learned what they didn't want to do. I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but again, it's really important to know that these programs provide so much value. Parents found great value in the programs because their kids often got to experience things they would not normally have experienced through the work. And the employers reported just really enjoying having kids on site. And I'm sure any of you who work in these programs where you plug kids into employment opportunities, that the employers enjoy having the students. So your efforts are well received by students, parents, employers, and it pays off for the students as well. Thanks for the plug time.
Yeah, so it's interesting though to listen to the Careerland Chicago talk about it and how they're developing this. And one of the things I've talked to Fulton High School staff, and Fulton High School is not nearly as large as Chicago Public Schools. Our high school enrollment is 280 total students. So it's very small, but we have to do a lot of work to get these off the ground. And here's a quote that I know is up in high schools a lot of times: it pays to get your high school diploma. And that is true. Most employers would require a high school diploma in order to be employed. However, what if employers stopped requiring that high school diploma? And the reality is that is happening. We have area businesses that are no longer requiring the high school diploma to hire a student. Some still have to be 18, but they are taking students without that piece of paper because they need workers that bad. So we had to look at what we're doing here at Fulton High School and some of the flexibility that we need. So our seniors that graduated last year, 64%, so roughly 40 of those students are going to go on to college. That's where these pathways and apprenticeships can definitely come in. Right now, we have one that's established for manufacturing for the apprenticeship education pathway. I would consider it an apprenticeship style program where it really gets kids into teaching, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Military, we have one student usually in a year, and then the workforce, 22 students. So what do we have in place for these students to help them get to where they want to be? And I guess at the end of the day, our goal is going to be to provide that coaching flexibility so they enter that workforce and they enter that workforce within the community. And with employers no longer requiring that diploma, these 22 students, any one of them, if high school's not going well for them, they could easily drop out, but they're still making that type of wage, and we want to avoid that. So the manufacturing pathway and this apprenticeship that we got started, again, these are our local businesses. So in total, the towns that make us up are probably 4,000 people, roughly. And these are the number of openings that we have in our town or in our area that are fairly close. So over 130 plus openings, and it's for a lot of manufacturing positions, CNC machining, being a combination welder, mechanical, electrician. So we want to pipeline these students to these manufacturers and give them some of that experience when they're in high school and education when they're in high school. So when they get out, they're not looking at multiple years of school. They're pretty much almost ready to start, if not studying. So what we did is we went through the Department of Labor, and that's somebody that is involved in the process. And the person that we worked with was great. They help you and they walk you through it. I don't know if she's there anymore. I think she might have been retiring or moving on, but they have other people that are in place. But they work with local businesses. That business, once they register this apprenticeship with the Department of Labor, they can waive that age 18 requirement. There's still some restrictions. For example, operating heavy equipment like forklifts, they can't do that, but they can still be on the floor and doing these jobs. And there's models that already exist. And in our area, being on the border with Iowa, Moline High School is probably about 30 miles from us, but it's about a 45-minute drive, so they weren't very accessible. But Clinton High School, which is right across the river from us, which is a very quick drive for our students, they have a program that exists, and it feeds into some of those local businesses that I mentioned earlier. So how these students qualify for this manufacturing is, and I'll talk about this in a little bit here, is just we have a junior student right now. Instead of going to 4 elective classes in a year that they typically get to choose, he goes over to Clinton High School and he's completing coursework for welding. And he's going to be, I believe he's going to finish up with around 24 credits of dual credit welding when this year finishes up. Then
Is he at Clinton High School or Clinton Community College?
He's technically at Clinton High School, but their instructor is a dual instructor for Clinton Community College. Yep. So he's earning Clinton Community College credits at Clinton High School through their instructor. But so the education is there for the student and the instructor is there for the student, and he has modules and different coursework that he has to complete. And then some seat time requirements that he has to complete. This April, he will be eligible to be interviewed by JT Colon, which was one of those companies I had showed you, in order to start an apprenticeship. For that apprenticeship, he's actually going to do some work this summer for them. And then this upcoming fall of this student's senior year, he's going to go to JT Colon in the mornings, work in the mornings, and be paid for that experience. He's still going to have some education requirements through Clinton Community College and coursework there that he needs to complete, but not nearly as extensive as this year. And then he'll come back to Fulton High School to get his English, his math, and whatever other credits that he needs in order to graduate. And the question in the chat from before with how does this work for a student after they're done with high school and they've graduated, this student will then be eligible to continue his apprenticeship with this company after he's graduated high school. There's a pay scale that he will follow. So he will not necessarily be paid as like a full-time welder in his last year, but he'll still be earning more than as if he was in his first year in the program. But what the businesses see is that if they get a student for this pathway or this apprenticeship, they're most likely going to stay with that company, even after graduation and after they complete their coursework. And once he completes his coursework, then he's a full-time employee with all of the benefits and the hourly wages that come with it. So the student has the potential by the time he's 20 years old to be a certified combination welder and working in a factory and probably earning a pretty good living doing it. So that's exciting for him, and he's our first student going through it. So I'm sure there'll be some hiccups, but so far it's going really well. The other pathway and apprenticeship style offering that we have is the education. So we were one of the districts. ISB had their certification, a certificate on their diploma, and we had 3 students earn this to where they were able to have a education pathway on their diploma that says they've completed this. So how students qualify it, again, we've already had that 60 hours of supervised experience. That was community involvement that we had first talked about. They do have to teach prepare at least 2 lessons. Usually this is done at our elementary or middle school with teachers that are mentors for these students. There's some English math benchmarks that they need to meet. Next year, they're going to have 6 hours of dual credit requirements, and then they have to complete 2 team-based challenges. So one of the things for team-based challenges, for example, our students presented to me and the staff about some student culture issues that they would like to address or would like to see change at the high school. So that's a good experience for them to be able to present and talk to adults. Pathway value for students who complete the education pathway. Golden Apple scholarships, they automatically get vaulted into the top 20%, which is, I believe, a $23,000 scholarship. So they've done a lot of work to become a teacher. They get vaulted into this top part of it. And we do know that most teachers will work within a 30-mile radius of their hometown. So teacher shortage is not going to go away anytime soon. So if we can't kind of create our future STEAMer teachers in our classrooms and through these experiences, hopefully when they return, we've already provided them experience and jumpstart on their education career to really solidify that this is what they want. So really what it came down to for anybody in the room, question-wise, as far as, well, how did you do this? First of all, we had to have the education. We had to find the education, which was a local community college or a career center. Our unique situation is Clinton, Iowa is right across the river. So it's a 10-minute drive to Clinton High School or the community college to get some of this education. We do have a career center that's in Sterling, Illinois, which is about 45 minutes away. Our students get on a bus at 7:05 in the morning to get there on time. So that's why we've looked at bridging this river as well, just because of transportation needs and costs. We needed to find a business that would say yes to willing to work with the Department of Labor, and yes to removing that 18+ requirement. It's nice, but not completely necessary. So for instance, we recently were establishing a apprenticeship program through our Whiteside Area Career Center. We were part of it to have to go to Metform, one of the businesses that we had listed below. The easiest thing that we did is we brought everybody to the table. The Department of Labor was there to help us, and we just used one of those models that already existed, and we looked at how we needed to modify it in order to make it work for our area. There has to be an educational entity that oversees the aspects of the apprenticeship that aligns education to the training. And that's primarily going to be the community college. It can be the high school, but for us, when we developed this, the community college was the one that really oversees it because they're the ones that are providing that education. So again, attaining and maintaining consistent employment. Some of the other stuff that we did is, okay, this benefits students who really know they want to go to become a welder or become a teacher, but we have a lot of different students. So for example, IEP students, what we did with some of these students is their transition goal. So we've worked with local employers. We have sent a student to Metform. They went from 6 a.m. to noon to go to Metform to work. They had met all their other requirements for English and math, just needed some elective credits. That was a way for us to place this IEP student into there, and that student is still working for that company. So it was a transition goal and able to get them to there. And we had another student that went as well. He worked from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So we flexed his school day. So he didn't have to come to us in the morning from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. He came to us in the afternoons, checked in with him, made sure he was doing his work educationally. And then at 4 p.m., he transported himself to this employer. On-paid students, but I would consider them at risk. Again, we're looking at developing ways to create this elective credit for these students. So right now I can tell you I have 3 students that are, we don't change something in what we're doing, they're going to drop out. And we don't want that. So we're trying to hook them up to these local employers to get them some elective credit. And our community involvement students complete about 60 hours of supervised experience. So if there's 60 hours of the supervised experience, let's give them a half credit towards electives. And then we're looking at education for these students with English, math, science. And do we provide that online? Do we provide a teacher to help them with it? Or how does this work? And it's case by case basis, but we're developing this as well. And then we have behind pay students that they haven't graduated, but they should have, but are still interested and still want to get their high school diploma. Again, we had an employer step up, said we are going to take these 2 students on who did not graduate, and they're going to go to work, but they're giving them time while at work to complete some credit recovery courses so that they have the opportunity to earn their high school diploma from us, but are still now not just sitting at home and not having a job. It's a local employer helping them and coaching them along as well. The other part, last thing that I'll kind of mention that we're doing is authentic career experiences is what we call them. And we're creating on-site opportunities for all of our students. So these programs are accessible to all of our students. Our culinary arts and business students, just recently we renovated a room that overlooks our varsity gym. We put in some huge windows, and it's a private suite. So we've called it the Steamer Suite. We've actually sold the naming rights to Central Bank. So it's a Central Bank Steamer Suite. And it is a place where our families can rent games to watch varsity contests from a different angle. Instead of in the old wooden bleachers, there's some nice chairs, pub tables that were built by our construction classes that they can sit there. Our culinary arts students, they cook all the food and put it up in the room. It's our business and technology students that on the back end work on those finances. So the budget, the book, advertising, hosting events. We have students that are up there that just make sure things are going well, talk to the people that have rented it out. Media publications, think about sports broadcasting. They also create and sell advertising for video boards, yearbook films. They produce live stream home events. So if you're on YouTube, you can watch any Fulton High School varsity event on YouTube for football and volleyball and basketball and wrestling. And then our arts class, again, getting them involved as well is they've done a great job with just helping us artwork in the Steamer Suite. They've painted some of the tables, and we've talked to them about making the entrance into that suite a little more appealing to the eye. So a lot of stuff that we're trying just to do in-house and create some of these experiences to have students really engaged and identify some careers that they think they might want to be in. I can tell you with the Steamer Suite that we've done, I have 2 sophomores right now who are going to be juniors. They've been asking me to kind of take over the design of it, and which is completely fine with me. If you ever come to my house, the decorations are definitely done by the wife and not by me, but we have 2 students who are coming in and wanting to put their stamp on what this looks like, run some of the social media, help promote it, help rent it out. And that's awesome. That is a huge skill that they will learn. And again, some other steps that school districts and businesses have to consider is flexibility. So scheduling, we've had to look at block versus traditional. Someone I know had asked about graduation requirements. Well, we have to look at that as well. So for example, can a math, ELA, or science credit be from an experience? So if a student's at this local company and they're reading blueprints that deal with a bunch of math and they're having to take measurements, can we recognize that as a math credit? The school day, does it have to be 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.? And quite frankly, I don't think it does. It really is to be flexible to work with those companies, and when they need our students, we need to get our students there to take advantage of this graduate portfolio, some of these different things we want to see with our students. And then finally, there's a link there, and I'll share this presentation when I'm done. But this was one of our ways at the high school, at Fulton High School, to really have conversations with staff about what this looks like and where we need to make some concessions in our scheduling and in our requirements in order for students to take advantage of the opportunities that we've developed. Good discussions, and there's still things we're working out. Just real quickly, again, we've worked with P20 before, and we presented here. We competency-based education. Illinois has that. Career pathways, still developing more and more of these apprenticeships, and still trying to develop more of those authentic workplace experiences. One thing at the bottom there says, can we pay students for workplace experiences? Even here, if we do anything in-house, and we found out we can pay up to $600 in a calendar year to students and not have to file a 1099 with them. So it's been very successful for our students as well. Again, we focused a lot on that post-secondary and trying to get a lot of these programs and college and career readiness started. So we've CELO, it's formerly career cruising. That's all freshmen have that, and we're trying to develop that through the rest of the high school, so students are using it, and we've got plans to do that. And then community involvement, that job sharing experience, how can we expand that to not just seniors, but freshmen, sophomores, juniors? So that's it. I'm going to leave us some time if there's any questions. Appreciate you listening to me ramble on a little bit about this. It's very exciting for me. I really enjoy all this work, and I'll be honest with you, at 1 o'clock today, when I get back from supervising lunch, I just got a text message from a business who wants to start an at-risk workplace study with some students that we have here. So I got a pretty exciting phone call this afternoon, but we'll take some questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Bob and Darryl. I'm very excited for that call later. I'll be interested to hear what you all discuss, and sending all the positive vibes for a fabulous conversation. And but do, again, some time for questions here. And I want to do a quick shout out that I love this question about how you celebrate students. I think back to being in the high school space, right? And students who are in athletics or students going to a 4-year, like they get all kinds of like shout outs and stuff, right? But students who are doing a youth apprenticeship or a career development experience and have these more, maybe what you'd see as like an alternative route after high school, are doing a lot of work. To celebrate them is incredibly important and valuable. So I love the special chords that you put on there, Darryl, right? To recognize them at graduation, and anything you all can do like that to recognize their achievements and their path after high school is just awesome. So, but I see some questions coming in. Darryl and Bob, I'll let you start addressing those.
Yeah, what I have, they're going a little quicker than disappearing off my screen here. The first question was, what programs to expand to? So for the Department of Labor Apprenticeship Program, we're working with the Career Center, the Whiteside Area Career Center. We would like to see automotive. We'd like to see Health Alliance get into that. The tricky part, and I think the folks that were with us earlier, Stephanie and I were talking before we started, is if you make these formalized with the Department of Labor, or do you not? That's kind of the big question. And you have a little more flexibility if your companies don't do that, but some companies don't want to pay students for these experiences and times. And that's where we found it important to leverage the Department of Labor component, because they were just getting some internships, along that continuum, and they were getting, some good labor work, but also then, and maybe a good employee. Obviously, when they're an employee, they're going to pay them. So that's sort of the balancing act. And by formalizing them with the Department of Labor, we do feel the student gets a better overall experience and a more regulated experience. That would be the one piece I would add. The health folks aren't as eager to go down the Department of Labor registered apprenticeship programming. It seems like, again, they're comfortable with some informal apprenticeships and internships, but not the registered piece so far. That's been what we found. And we still have companies who are sort of struggling a little bit with that 18-year-old age group and some of the manufacturing activities they're exposed to. They will claim that insurance barriers are some of their issues at their corporate centers. And that's and you just have to keep at that to work through that. What other questions, Heather? Bob,
So
maybe you can answer the question about the work integration.
So I would say again, how do we track all of that? I think a lot of it is one, we know if the student's not going. So I mentioned that second student that went to a local employer and he was going from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'll just let you know he got fired. And it wasn't because of us not trying to remediate or the fact that it was a learning experience. What I really appreciated about that business is they sent me an email that stated, here's this student's attendance track right now. If he was not part of our program, he would already be gone. So I sat down with the student and we talked about that. We had an open and honest conversation about attendance and what that means for an employer. And if he really wanted to keep that job, he needed to improve his attendance. He didn't improve it. So unfortunately, it didn't work out for him, but I will say that I hope he learned a very valuable lesson about the importance of attendance there. So we do know in these experiences, if students aren't going, well, the employer is counting on that student to be there. And if they're not there, they let us know. And then we have that conversation with students. So that, and then as far as like, I just ask for simple evaluations. And so I'll call employers, hey, how is student A doing? And they will tell me about how they're doing. Do we have a central hub to maintain all that data? We do not. We're a very small school, 280 kids. I am the primary one that does a lot of this. We have a work study teacher that helps, but she is also a special education teacher that has other duties during the day. So we don't have anybody coordinated to do this, but we've left it pretty open, flexible, and simple so that we can manage it on our end. And I think the interesting part though is what we're going to be able to do in the future and how this works. Because I have an unbelievable success story that I'll share you with you guys shortly. Competency-based education, I don't have time to talk all about that here. I'm very passionate about it, but it allows our students to move in different paces. So for example, if you have a freshman student who is able to demonstrate that they are at the same level of a senior in English, then do they need to really take all 4 years of English, or can we open up that class period when they're sophomores and juniors to give them another time to take another class that they would like to at high school? So we don't want to lock them into that scheduling. So question about issues with students needing transportation. So success story, and this happened yesterday, not even 24 hours. We have a student, he gets picked up. He's been riding the bus. He's a senior student. He gets picked up in Albany, the town next to us, about 10 miles away. They drive him here. We have a van driver that picks him up and takes him over to Jewel Osco. And he goes and he works Jewel Osco every day from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then a bus goes and picks him up and brings him back. This is again, he is a senior student. He didn't pass driver's ed. He really struggled. We've had to put him in alternate educational placements. And what I'll tell you is yesterday he came in, he showed me his temporary driver's license ID because he's been working and he fixed up a car. He got it. So he showed me his picture and said, look at this beautiful man. I said, it was awesome. And he drove to school for the first time today because he spent all of the money that he saved while working in this program to fix the car, went to the DMV, passed his driving test, got his registration, bought car insurance. And I haven't seen him today because he's at work. But when he comes back to 2 o'clock, I'm going to ask him how his first drive to school was. And eventually we're going to get that van out of the way so that he can just drive himself to Jewel himself and get that future started for him. So it's extremely exciting. But in short, we have looked at providing transportation for students so that this is equitable to all students. And whether they can or cannot provide transportation, we do not have public transit here other than our local bus service. So we are getting kids on a driver to their placements so that this is meaningful to them as well.
Thank you all again so much. And the students behind this work are why we do the work and what makes it all like just worthwhile in the end when you're in those moments and struggling with something and trying to figure out this challenge or this barrier, right? A student who may not have never gotten to that point of getting their driver's license, like without a program like this, right? And gaining that confidence and that ability is just incredible stories. And I have my own personal, the Jewel magic story, right? Met my spouse at Jewel working there. So you never know, they might also pick up a partner along the way here. But thank you again so much, Bob and Darryl, for sharing today, and to our Career Launch Chicago group for sharing today. I'm excited about all the work that you all will continue to do, and how your insights and the best practices, the pieces you've overcome can support others here on this call who might be currently running a youth apprenticeship program or thinking about running it. And I know they've all shared their contact information. So, please, they're all incredible, willing to connect with you. So please reach out if you all have additional questions. And thank you all so much again.